What's up? Welcome in on this Thursday of distraction. I told you next week was the week that work production goes right in the crapper. Well, it's already started today. Tick, 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 tick on your LED court. There we go. Thank you very much. Not that I'm sweating anything right now. T, you know it's March when two things happen. There's pit stains and there's back sweats. And the first random yell from said closed cave where I am right now of no out loud as you can at the end of a Big Ten tournament game in the opening round. It is definitely March. I walked out of the studio with our drill power tool in my hand. I had to rehang something over here that fell down the other day. The first thing the wife does is go, "Why are you holding a power tool? You're not supposed to touch those unsupervised." I go, that wasn't actually why I yelled, because Iowa almost hit a 3 at the end of the game against Ohio State is why I yelled. She goes, put it back. So we're in the middle of the thick of it now in March. How are you, big guy?
Oh man, I'm grumpy, but it's all good.
Grumpy tea is my favorite tea.
Have you forgiven yourself for losing the Morehead State ticket in a sea of Coors Light bottles, and that thing paid like plus 360 if I remember right, or something ridiculous. And yeah.
The answer is no. I have not forgiven myself for that one. And we've talked about this a couple times, and we're going to have to make it happen again. Now, we might be changing location when we make it happen again, but T and I did March Madness up in Vegas, I think for like 6 years straight, I feel like. Yeah, I think 7 was the number we got stuck on. And met a guy who was sitting at the table. If you've ever done, and I don't know if they do it the same now because everybody wants to charge up there for everything, but you sit at these big wedding banquet room tables, and there's usually, 8 seats. The same guys in the corner rooting for Kansas every year that we would make fun of every year when Kansas would lose. Mm-hmm. And I was on a heater, and we had met a guy who was a scout for the Supersonics, and he asked how we were betting the tournament and said, like everybody else, we're just betting underdogs. He gave us a theory and a system, and I said, screw it that year, and I tried it. Well, my biggest pay for the whole thing was thanks to a long night at the roulette wheel that actually was a rarity that benefited us. I had $500 on Morehead State, and I can't remember the exact upset now, but they pulled it. We're all happy, go back up to the room. T asked me if I've cashed the ticket. I lost the ticket in a sea of circular beer bottles that just kept going like this and busted parlays. Thankfully, the only way that happens to me now is if I lose my damn phone, so we don't have to worry about it. So plenty of stuff we're going to get to today. I'm pretty sure Air Force, or Nevada just scored on Air Force again. That was brutal yesterday. And Max said this, and we've talked about this as well. We've got to go up to Vegas one year for conference tournament week. I want to see that vibe, especially because you can actually physically get to the games. Mm-hmm. It's already starting for me, man. I love this time of year. It's like friggin' Christmas for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's going to lead right into Tuesday and Wednesday will be a nice little primer to get you all greased up, and then Thursday, oh my gosh, it is on. It is absolutely on.
Yeah, we're going to get to a couple of those. We're going to talk about some of these teams that we're seeing. Some are getting eliminated. Some are playing their way into the tournament. Some are playing their way out. Obviously, the biggest story of the morning, the first loss hung on Miami, Ohio, the Redhawks, by Frank Martin's UMass Minutemen. That was an interesting one, and it's going to, yet again, open up this debate about whether or not Miami of Ohio belongs there. I have the damn solution for it, but we're also going to talk some hockey and get you caught up in the baseball world. Feel free to comment along if you're watching along. T, I was talking about this yesterday, and our boy, Jason Benetti, named the Sunday night baseball voice of NBC, which I love. Well, we find out today that our other boy, Mr. Santa Maria,
yes,
he is back, baby. He's going to call the opening game on Netflix between the Giants and Yankees, and then he will be, as Andrew Marchand calls him in this article, Mr. Opening Day, where he'll call the Yankees the Mets against the Pittsburgh Pirates on March 26th. He's also going to be the guy on the Sunday leadoff coverage for NBC. So they're putting together quite the group on NBC. And when your two main play-by-play voices are Jason Benetti and Matt Vasgersian, you're not doing anything wrong there.
No, and we've talked about how like TNT has done a masterful job with hockey because of the group that they put not only in the studio, but the talent that they have doing the games. And this is just another example. I mean, different network, but the same thing, right? Matty V is amazing. I wish we got to hear him a little bit more, but he is. I mean, he's the voice of the show. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is the guy. So this is great news. This gives me a little bit more incentive to watch that opening day game other than, betting against the Yankees.
I am glad you brought that up too, because, in today's day and age, and we talk about growing the game of baseball, well, one way to do that is to not miss an entire season, which obviously is going to be the giant elephant in the room all year. But you brought up Matt being the voice of the show. Well, this next generation of baseball fans grew up playing that damn game. So I thought he was going to make a decent run at NBC's lead role for Sunday Night Baseball. I love that they're using both of these guys here, but he is a voice of a generation because that new version of baseball fans are coming from the kids that just sat there and played the show and 2K and Madden and all that stuff. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. What I also love is we seem very smart when it comes to the World Baseball Classic, T, because all three of our predictions to win the World Baseball Classic have advanced to the next round. Korea will take on the Dominican Republic. USA will take on Canada, who punch their ticket in. Those are your Friday games. Saturday, you've got Puerto Rico against Italy, who's red hot right now. The Spicy Italians. And then Venezuela and your pick, Japan. So one of us is going to lose a pick in that game there. Probably me. But I said if I was going to watch this damn thing, I needed incentive. Venezuela's given me that. Mark DeRosa, probably the happiest man on the planet right now because he avoided sheer disaster. What have you thought? Because I mentioned this a little bit last night. Mac jumped on for a few minutes last night. He will pop in and make a cameo today. What have you thought of it so far? Have you watched any of it? Because when we talked about it last, and I agreed with you, you weren't going to go out of your way to make it appointment television. Have you watched any of it, and what have you thought in the little bit you've probably seen?
I've watched a little bit of it. I'm really, the Italian team cracks me up because of like Vinny Pasquantino's on the team, and like I think he might, and I think there's the Italian pitcher. He's actually an Angels draft pick. Is there? And I don't think they have any other Italians. I don't know, but I love the spirit of this thing. I think it's a lost opportunity, especially for the U.S. because I don't think the Americans are still taking it as serious as other countries, and that's a shame because they're hosting most of the games. So that I think it's a lost opportunity. They need player, and we see it in basketball too. You know what? One sport we don't see it in. We don't see it in hockey because when they commit to the 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they commit, and I think it's a missed opportunity. Like I know that you would love to see Tarek Skubal out there, like dealing as often as he can. You'd love to see him come in the ninth inning of a game that they have to win. And so, other than that, I mean, it is what it is. I'll watch a little bit more this weekend. I'm interested to see if Canada brings out Nathan McKinnon to maybe knock in an easy run and not do it. But I mean, it should be interesting.
He'd hit nothing but long foul balls to the left is where I'd go with that one. Vinny Pasquantino last night, Pasquatch of the Royals, who I can't wait to see live in July in Kansas City this year. 3 home runs. He becomes the first player in WBC history to hit 3 home runs. The interview after the game was fantastic. He goes, "I'm all beamed up. I'm excited. You're welcome, USA." And that was Mac's point on it, and I think this is the best way to say it, and this is probably where we'll leave this hanging for right now, is you just mentioned it as well. Like, you're seeing the other countries and how serious they take this and how much it means to them. Yes, I get it. There's not very many Italians on the team. There's 2 that I need to see on the team, Jack Caglione, Vinny Pasquantino. I'm good there, but I think that's it. And I think these are the games that really make it interesting
Mhm.
that I'll probably have the second screen on for most of the weekend just to see these because of the passion that the other countries play with, and that's going to be the fun part. But I don't know if Pascantino slept since yesterday because three espresso shots in a 9 inning baseball game, you're going to be pretty beamed up and wired up, just like he said he was. So,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's going to be now. Where do they go next? Because I know they were playing in weren't they playing in Houston?
so
So
we've got Miami for Korea and the Dominican Republic, and Venezuela and Japan, Houston for Puerto Rico and Italy, and the U.S. and Canada, and then they
okay.
will shift to Miami for everything. So exciting baseball to be played at Lone Depot Park, which is not something
For
that
once.
normally happens there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty of other stuff going on. Not much today as far as the Major League Baseball world goes. Most of it we updated you on that yesterday. There is some pretty interesting stuff going on in college basketball and Miami of Ohio. I've got it on the other screen right here as I'm getting ready to watch this Miami game and do a show simultaneously because I am multi-talented like that. Joe Lenardi, for those of you wondering, he has them in the last four in as an at-large team. Now, here's what we know. And as much as I hate this with a burning friggin' passion, and if I can find Mackenzie Brooks's tweet about it the other day, she nails it here. But it's more than likely that we're going to see Auburn make this tournament. And we talk every year, they want to bring up expansion of the tournament, expansion of the tournament, expansion of the tournament. The people that think Miami of Ohio, because they didn't play anybody, doesn't belong there, whatever. I don't sit on that side of the argument. We have these first four games in Dayton. If Auburn's such a talking point here, and so is Miami of Ohio, that's what your games in Dayton are for. Put the two of them up against each other, and let's stop talking about this because Auburn is backing their way in due to a lot of teams that haven't done it. And here's her tweet that I was looking for. Virginia Tech, they've eliminated themselves. Stanford has eliminated themselves. There is a very high likelihood that this Auburn team, which I think belongs nowhere near the tournament, gets in. What the hell are we playing first four games? Put the two of them together and let's settle this because I think Miami of Ohio kicks their ass.
I thought that was exactly what the first four were intended to do. Not match up North Carolina A&T and Prairie View A&M, no disrespect at all, and to battle it out for who's going to take the ass whooping from Kansas in the next game.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a brilliant idea. And look, what is it? They're 30. Did they get 31, 32 and 0? Dude,
31-1 now. Yeah.
they're your body of work speaks for itself. Miami got stiffed. They tried to schedule a bunch of games and nobody wanted to play them. This is no fault for them. They belong. I think they belong as an 8 or a 9 seed, to be honest with you. There was a team in 1990, 91 from a mid-major conference called UNLV that
Mm-hmm.
went through the season undefeated and got a 1 seed in the West. And yes, the personnel was different, but you're trying to tell me that playing teams like Bowling Green and Ohio is different than playing Cal State Fullerton and UC Irvine?
Yeah.
I don't think so. This team belongs, and they belong. That if they are not in this tournament, it is a mockery of a
The Travis
selection.
Sham mockery. Burgle Flickle and everything else. We talked about some of the coaches that got canned yesterday, Bobby Hurley, Adrian Autry and stuff. Jim Boeheim had some pretty interesting comments today, and it kind of comes off of some comments that Dick Vitale made this past weekend. And Boeheim basically, in paraphrasing this, I think he's a good coach. I think he got into a situation where his best players just didn't play the way they needed to play. They needed to play, and it cost him his job. The one thing with Adrian this year, he won't say it. People will think it. I shouldn't say it, but his two best players had bad years. That's what he told to Q Sports Talk. We've talked about NIL and the goods and the bads of it and everything, and I think from a basketball standpoint, it really does work wonders because you're seeing these guys stay. You're seeing these guys, get more experience. They're coming to the NBA as better players, but Vitale, when he was watching doing the Kentucky game the other day, and I thought this nailed it, and this is the part nobody wants to talk about. He says, I've done several now Kentucky games. $22 million has reportedly been spent on this team in terms of NIL for their players. I think in $22 million they could have put together a better roster than they did. I really do. And I think that's why we're seeing in college hoops, especially T, and we saw it at Sac State. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal is the general manager now. We didn't know there was general managers in college sports until a couple years ago. There's people that I think you're going to see more and more people cross over from the NBA or from other sports into these roles, because the point with the Kentucky roster is entirely true. And that's I think that's the thing that frustrates a lot of people about NIL is we don't really know, because there's no cap. We don't really know who's spending what here. But let's just say they spent $15 million on their roster for a team, and we're going to talk about some of these teams here in just a second, so it's a perfect segue. For a team that is likely looking at probably the best case of seed placement really matters for this Kentucky team, or you're going to get clipped right away by a Miami of Ohio team. I think the general manager position is going to now become a mainstay in college basketball because of cases like this.
Look, if this is the direction it's heading, and it certainly appears there's no end in sight, and it's fine. Yes, you need somebody there who. So, if you think about a regular professional sports team, which this is kind of is, you have a general manager that makes decisions for the team, and they have to slot everybody in, and they have to fit make all the money work. Why wouldn't you? You're irresponsible if you don't do that as a program at the college level. Because what are you going to do? You're going to keep throwing bad money after bad money to try and compete with an Alabama in the SEC or what have you. I think this is exactly what needs to happen. Yeah, at first when O'Neal was named the general manager, I'm like, what the hell are they doing? They're just going to get the band back together. But this is a very important. It is very important. I mean, especially for a team like Sac State, who wants to make this huge splash and go into Division I in all sports. And now they're in the MAC in football, and they want to draw players into the middle of the valley there. You have to do that. It's best for your program. If you're spending the money, you need a return on that investment.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And again, it's going to be interesting to track. It's going to be interesting to see going forward. Speaking of tracking, let's start looking at some of these teams where placement in the tournament is paramount. But before we do that, look who I found.
Oh, Jesus.
What's up?
Or maybe you didn't find him.
Yeah, that's true.
Is this
very true?
Is this one of my picks for the players, or for the whatever's happening?
No. We're gonna excuse you from that one. But if you followed what happened last week, T, we talked about this last night. The humor that was my -2 from last week's Arnold Palmer with miscut, and withdrawal in middle of tournament. First thing I see when I wake up this morning, and not that it's funny that he had to withdraw due to injury, but if you've watched this show long enough, it's funny in the context. One of Mac's guys withdrew on his second hole today in Colin Morikawa. Do you have anything to say for yourself, Mackenzie?
I'm just glad that Oberg is on the leaderboard. That's about all I got right now. So in order to avoid our back-to-back -2s, I need a good round from Ricky this afternoon. But man, what a way to start! Like, And I asked the commissioner. I thought it was a legitimate question. If they withdraw, do we get to use them again? And I did not get the response I was looking for. I will not tell you the response I got because, this is a kid's show. So
GFY was the response you got.
Hey, just for, S and G's here, one of my picks is leading the tournament right now.
Nice.
Yeah, we did not get your picks, so why don't you drop them, because we missed out on those last night. So who do you have, since it's still early enough, we'll allow them?
So I went with since, Mac got you last week, I did a tribute to Mac. And so I picked Maverick McNeely.
Nice.
I picked Robert McIntyre. And I picked who's the other one? Oh, I picked Rory McIlroy.
There you go.
Wow. He got
See,
Big Mac'd.
T's got themes. Last week he went all musical on it. It's funny because off of the last time we had T do this is signature events only this year. T is not the golfer for those of you joining us. So he's got an interesting way of picking his picks. I think it's hilarious that I went with one of Mac's picks from last week, Russell Henley, who's tied for second. And then my sleeper pick was Tommy Fleetwood, who is tied for fifth right now and having a great start to the tournament while wearing players merchandise. So let's get back to the hardwood though, guys, because there's a lot to talk about. Next week, only 2 shows because of March Madness. So Tuesday we'll look at one side of the bracket. Wednesday we'll look at the other side of the bracket, and then we'll make our national championship picks. But in talking about this, guys, we're looking at a lot of these teams now, and this is that time of the year where you can follow bracketology and it gets updated all the time. But we're going to kind of focus today on the teams that need good seed placement. For example, one of the ones we were just talking about in Kentucky. Kentucky's seed placement is absolutely paramount. So I'll get us started here. Another one, and I'm going to stay in the SEC, and that's Tennessee. I think the 5 spot, the 5 line, would be absolute death to Tennessee. And we know how it is with Rick Barnes when it comes to tournament time. He's always going to have his teams ready to go. But this Tennessee team, and they will get Ament back in their game today for the first time in a couple weeks, so that's key there. But I'm telling you right now, and I've seen this on 3 different bracketology projections right now, Tennessee is slated to be a 5 seed. And they're probably looking at a Northern Iowa team that just went on a hell of a run in their conference tournament, and a team that's very, very good. I think that Tennessee placement at 5, it could be death to them. And the only way that they move themselves up off of that 5 line into the 4s is by running the table in the SEC tournament. Oh, by the way, you have to deal with Behemoth 1 and Behemoth 2 in Arkansas and Florida to do that. So that's my first one. Seed placement for the Vols, very, very important to me. T, what's another team on your radar you think is good, but their seed placement matters?
Well, I'm going to go and vouch for the mid majors here, and I'm going to say Utah State. This is a team that's rolled through the Mountain West pretty much all year, and they need to avoid the 5 slot for sure, but they also need to make sure that they don't get into the 8-9 matchup, because I could see them as an 8-9 winning that first round game, and then their tournament's going to be over. They're just not good enough to make a run from that middle part of the bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. Vegas, Mac, why don't you give me a team that you're liking, but their seed placement is paramount?
This is a team that actually had a really good conference year, and that's Virginia. I think for Virginia, I think that's they played a really tough and then had a nice run in the ACC. But again, I think it's all about where they're going to get placed. Right now I'm looking at one where they're a 4 seed. I think that's about right for them. But I think this is a Virginia team that I'm not 100% sold on, but I'm not exactly sure how successful they're going to be. It seems as though they played, like I said, well during the conference season. They played well against some of the better teams, but again, it's one of those, if they get stuck against, I'm just trying to see who they would be projected against here. Even maybe like a St. Mary's team or something like that. They could run into trouble with that team.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a perfect case for them because, everybody was kind of high on them, and then we saw them go to Cameron and just lay a complete dump and not even show up. Today they were able to eke out a win against NC State earlier. Miami's got somebody down on the floor. That doesn't make me happy considering they're the 3rd leg of a bet. I'm going to go to another team in the SEC, and we're a show for the people here, and I'm trying to help everybody out there. Because, as we were told, people only care about college basketball for 2 weekends out of the year. Wrong. But everybody's big on this team. And I'm warning you now, don't be big on this team. And it's the Georgia Bulldogs. Listen, they're having a great year, one of the better years in school history. But this team is going to be absolutely dependent on a good seed placement. And they're probably looking at ending up in the Midwest region where you're talking about a possibility of a 1 seed Michigan and a 2 seed UConn. And right now, I think Georgia's kind of hanging around that 7, 8, 9 seed area. So we know the danger there. But as a 7 seed, this Georgia team's going to end up probably with a team a la Santa Clara, if you're following Joe Lunardi's bracketology here. I will tell you right now, this team can score. Their defensive rating, not very good. And if they're in a matchup with another team that can score, who's good defensively, that's already strike one. Number two, Mike White in a coaching matchup is not the side you want to be on. Trust me, I know it better than anybody else does. If he gets stuck against Santa Clara, even if Herb Sendek has one eye possibly on Providence, from what I read today, I think that's a horrible matchup. In any matchup that Mike White can be outcoached in, Georgia is going to be a quick out and one of the quicker outs you're going to see here. T, give me another one.
I think it's Texas Tech. I think that they're once again that 4-5 spot for Texas Tech is gonna if they go into a Midwest region like you said with UConn and a number 1 Michigan, dude, they're going to be done very quickly as well. Plus, I want to see. I'm not sure if they've proven that they can overcome the injury, but can you overcome it against a really good team? And that right out of the gate, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and they got blasted today by Iowa State, 75-53 in the game. I was sweating here when we started the show, but you know, it's all dependent on Christian Anderson for them playing a clean basketball game, which is something that it depends on the day of the week for them. I think Texas Tech is a perfect case scenario, if you will, for what we're talking about. Mac, what do you got?
I got another one, and they played today, and St. John's. This is a team that, again, I'm just looking at the one bracket I have. They're in the East, and it just cracks me up. The teams that are in this one, they have Clemson, Kansas, Texas Tech, who we just mentioned, Nebraska, Miami, and Michigan State, and Texas in there. Like, you want to talk about a crapshoot of a region? That's a crapshoot of a region right there. I mean, you know. You could pick any one of those teams could end up going up against Duke, the way you look at it. But St. John's is a team from a defensive standpoint, one of the better teams in the country. They rebound very well, but they might not be able to throw the ball in the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. That's the problem. That's the problem with them. When they're on, that's a team that I think could compete with Duke. But the problem is they do not shoot the ball very well.
No, and I'm really interested, and I know obviously you are from a personal standpoint, Mac, to see round 3 of St. John's and UConn if we do get that. Obviously, they kind of cruised today, but I think that's a great point. St. John's has been another team this year that's really hard to peg. All right, my last one here, and you guys are going to love my note because I can actually read my note on this verbatim. It's BYU. And BYU literally needs a matchup against, and I wrote this, an equally shitty defense. This team is terrible on defense. And they're another one of those teams that's kind of hovering around that. If they play well enough for the rest of the conference tournament here, they could probably play themselves to a 5 line, which obviously isn't the easy way to go. They're probably looking at a 6 or a 7. Then you're talking about, at least from Lunardi's side here that I'm on, looking at a winner of a play-in game or an opening round game. Sorry, we can't call them that, even though they are. SMU and Auburn in Dayton. And I think that SMU team is really hard team to get a feel on. But BYU, if they're in a matchup against a team that can move up and down the floor with them, especially without having Richie Saunders there, this team sucks on defense. They are terrible. So BYU, my third one. T, what else you got?
I got Iowa State. They had that huge win today, but if they get into a stacked region, I don't know if that's going to help them very much because, they may be that's a team that could be a 2 in some regions, but it could be as low as a 4 or a 5 in other regions. So if they get into one of those regions with like a Florida or a number 2 seed that's kind of like a number 1 seed, that could spell problems for this team. I love this team, by the way. This team may be a freaking wagon.
Mac, final one from you. What do you got?
I think another one for me is Nebraska. I really, really like this team. The more I watch them, I think Nebraska and Iowa State for me like almost seem like the same team. They really do it in a lot of ways. But I really like this Nebraska team. But again, as we've been talking about, I think it's all about a matchup for them. But they could be. Honestly, they could be a Final Four team, or they could be, not even make it to that first weekend, out of that first weekend. So I'm really unsure about them, but I think they might be, I wanted them to be good in football. I kind of was pushing for them to be good in football, and that was an absolute train wreck. So I don't know what I have with this connection to Nebraska. I'm gonna have to sit down and figure it out a little bit, but I really like this team.
It's because Indiana screwed up the algorithm, and we got Indiana as a football school and Nebraska as a basketball school. I am interested with them too, and that's a team that we've talked about quite a bit this year. Probably looking at a 3 seed for most likely. Maybe they drop to a 4 spot. I'm looking at this one right now. South region with Florida at the top spot in the South, Houston at the 2. And then Nebraska and Purdue in the 3-4 spots. That Purdue team is hot garbage. So I don't know really what to do there. So as we get a little bit closer, again, we'll have some more stuff tomorrow. We'll keep you up to date to anything that's going on. I need the Miami of Florida Hurricanes to wake the hell up right now. Down 10-8, about 13 minutes left to go. I think it's time to talk about some teams. For those that are just watching college basketball for the start of the season, and I think we've got a way to do it. T, what do you think here?
Yeah, maybe I'll just fire off a team and you can tell me what you think.
Let's do it then.
All right, Mac, do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to start with the team that is a mid-major, but they try to act like a real team, and they just have not been able to crack through, and that is Gonzaga.
Oh, Gonzaga on their best day, I think, is a Final Four team. Gonzaga on their worst day, and it's all going to come down to the guard play. We've talked about some of the issues with them this year and free throw shooting. So Gonzaga's a team, to me, that looks like King Kong, but can probably play like Jane if they're not hitting their free throws in this tournament. Fire away. What else you got for me?
Hey, listen, we all been on, Miami of Ohio and what a great season they have. But, this is a team, we've talked about them a little bit. So what are your thoughts, Mike, about this St. Louis team?
I was really, really big on the Billikens. I thought they could be kind of the surprise team for me. I think they remind me of a team that's going to look at their first Naked Woman magazine for the first time here and kind of, what else happens from there. I love them. I love what they've done. The way they've played over the last couple of weeks makes me kind of think they're going to piddle down their leg when they get here.
All right, I'll give you another one here really quick, and it's a team that I like, and I mentioned him before as a outside chance to win this whole thing, and that's Michigan State.
I knew you were going to go there too. Michigan State. It's not wise for your health to go against Tom Izzo when the calendar says March, and I've learned that lesson plenty of times. There's a lot of people that are high on this Michigan State team. Michigan State this year reminds me a lot of, like, your really good friend that's always there in a pinch for you, but then if you really need him in a big situation, he's not going to show up. So I'm kind of thinking that's where I'm at with Michigan State here. Can bring the life to the party, but then you asked him to bring a bag of ice, and he simply forgot it. That's Michigan State this year.
All right, I'm going blue blood question for you, Mike. I'm gonna give you two. You have to tell me who's gonna have the best tournament. Ready? Kansas or North Carolina?
Oh God.
Better watch out. Billy V's gonna want to know.
Ooh, right?
What what do you
I
like
stumped him.
better? Your home bathroom after Taco Bell or having to use a bathroom in a Mexican restaurant on the fly?
Oh boy.
I don't trust Kansas one bit whatsoever. I've talked about it. Like I'm not going to keep railing on the kid, but the Darren Peterson thing is weird, and I wonder
Mhm.
about team chemistry and what happens here. And Carolina, I was probably going to be way higher on Carolina until the Caleb Wilson freak injury there, and they don't have the horses without Wilson to compete. But if I had to say who would I trust to have a better tournament, there's something fundamentally wrong with this Kansas team top to bottom. And I hate to say this because it would suck, but I really think this is the last year we see Bill Self on a sideline, and that's got a little bit to do with it too. So if I had to make a pick between those two, the reality is the one that plays longer is probably the one that gets bounced in the first round because they don't play till Friday when the other one plays on Thursday. That's where I'm at with both of them. All right, T, give me one more. We'll let Mac have one more shot, and then we'll move on to some puck.
All right, I'm going to give you a team that has played very well over most of the season, but has hit a couple of rough patches lately, and it's right down the street from you, the Arizona Wildcats.
Arizona is like the ex you should never go back to, but for some reason you do. I'm still having a real hard time gauging this team. I'm going to be glued to them. I'm not glued to them, obviously, right now. A, because we're doing a show, and B, they're playing UCF. Who gives a shit? But I am going to be glued to how they go forward here. And Mac brought up a really good point a couple weeks ago with this Arizona team. If you're still kind of up in the air and you don't know what to do with them, watch how they play in the. I'll get back to this in a second. Billy V is checking in. Watch how they play in the Big 12 tournament. I think the other thing that's kind of scary for me with Arizona is looking at the makeup of that region and a potential of a Sweet 16 game if it holds to this bracketology projection that I've now switched to here, where Arkansas is lurking for them. I think that's a very interesting matchup for Arizona. So I love how they defend. I love how they don't give you second chance points. I'm probably higher on Arizona this year than I have been, but not enough to pull the trigger on them winning a national title.
All right, I got one more for you. This is again another team that I really like for a good part of the year. I'm kind of not so high on them anymore, and that's the Fighting Illini.
They are probably, for me, the hardest team to get a gauge on in this tournament because they're going to end up with a high seed and they deserve one because their body of work shows that they do. I mean, I think anything less than a 2 seed for them is a crime. I think, I think this would be a golden path for them in what I'm looking at right here. 2 seed Illinois against Tennessee State in St. Louis, then they'd get the winner of Kentucky and a team we've already actually talked about, St. Louis, playing in St. Louis. You want an easy way for Kentucky to lose? There it is. But then they would have that game. So that's pretty easy. But then you're looking at like Wisconsin, who is very similar to me as like Illinois without as much talent as Illinois, but they could be lurking there. Gonzaga, UC Irvine, if they were able to knock off Gonzaga, which I don't think there's a prayer of that happening. Illinois is the team that when these brackets come out, I'm going to be very interested to see what their path is because on Tuesday they look like they could be national champions, and on Friday they look like a team that's set for an opening weekend exit. So Billy V checking in on our Kansas Carolina thing here. Not that this is going to surprise any of us that know Billy V, but I don't think he's far off there, though. And I do. I think both of those teams are game to possibly be done in the first weekend. I can't go back to the point on Kansas enough, guys. I think there's something, and there has been something fundamentally wrong with that team all season long. Whatever that issue is, we're probably never going to know. But that's plenty of that. We'll got more on college basketball tomorrow. We'll keep you up to date. Right now is the only time of the day we've got kind of a little bit of a lull. We've got some lopsided matchups here. Louisville and Miami is probably the only good game, and it's been a good game so far. Let's get to the ice here. And I mentioned this last night, and I wanted to get both of your guys' takes on this. because I was looking at the Pacific Division race, and I talked about Nick Schmaltz signing his contract extension with Utah, and why watching this Utah team having success really burns you in a bad spot when it comes to an Arizona hockey fan. What's your take on for both of you guys? Because I know both of you guys were huge Coyotes fans. Obviously, T, we had season tickets together, and Mac went through a whole free agency to find a team. So I'll start with T, then Mac here. How, as an Arizona hockey fan, do you watch this Utah team, and does it burn you to see all those years of building this thing the way they did in Arizona now coming to fruition? And the Schmaltz deal, I think, is a perfect example of that.
I think it's a little column A and a little column B, to be honest with you. Like you're seeing what happens when you have competent leadership. And look, I've given my thoughts about this being Ryan Smith's new toy, and I think the Jazz performance and what's going on with them has validated that to an extent. But let's give the guy credit, right? He's spending the money and he's making the team better. There's no other play. Remember when Schmaltz came over to Arizona, he was damaged goods in Chicago, like, and they got him for Dylan Strome and Brendan Perlini, which was a fleece job. He has great chemistry with Keller, so that was a no brainer. And I don't think he would have gotten as good a deal with anybody else. But I think it's always going to be looked through the prism right now of what could have been, right? What could have been, and somebody, and I hope it's somebody who covered the Coyotes for a long time. Somebody could write a book about that 30-year period of this franchise, and it would be a fascinating read to see all of the crap that has gone on behind the scenes.
I don't watch them. I can't. The scar is still there. I have a hard time watching. When I watched them play the one game against Carolina. It was really weird for me. I'll be honest. You know, it's one of those things. You kind of knew the way it was being built. You just knew in a couple of years they were going to have success. They still haven't had success. They still haven't made the playoffs. They may make it this year. Let's just get that out. But I don't think they've had the success that they maybe thought they were going to have. I think a little bit sooner. I thought they would be even a little bit better in this year and even a little bit last year than when they first left Arizona. And so I mean. I still think there's some disappointment there. I mean, I think there's still a little bit of a disappointment as far as where they are. I think they should be a little bit better than they are. So, I mean, with that being said, I wish them the best. But I still don't think they have, like you said, I still don't think they have the success that I thought they were going to have. I thought they would be better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to have both of you guys back. It's the first time I've had the three-way box going here in a while. T only has a couple minutes left. We're going to clip you guys off one by one here. But last night I kind of went through what I thought of the trade deadline and how Anaheim was a huge winner here. T, give me a couple assessments on how you think the trade deadline went, and then we'll let Mac follow up and retort anything that he might feel he needs to. Well, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Colorado showed that they're right in the middle of everything again. They're going for broke. Dallas is making big moves. And Minnesota made some great moves. So you got those three again in the West. It's them and everybody else. I agree with you. I thought Anaheim did great. I love what Buffalo is doing. And if they can sign Logan Stanley to a long-term deal, I love it even more. I think Vegas missed opportunities here. And I don't think Edmonton is any better than they were before.
I was a little disappointed, honestly, in the whole thing. I mean, you had so many big names that were out there, and I know it kind of became a money issue for a lot of these teams. They didn't see the value in some of these bigger names. But I think for me that was a little disappointing that some of the bigger names that were being talked about didn't get moved. I think that would have really pushed the needle for me. Maybe it was because Carolina just kind of bypassed the whole trade deadline for the most part.
Would a Bobrovsky to Carolina deal done it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it would have. I mean, that would have been, I mean, a good place with him and the bus. I mean, that would have really made me feel pretty good going into the playoffs. But you know, like from that standpoint, maybe like I said, that's why I didn't like it as much because you know when your team doesn't do a whole lot, you kind of like. I think there was a little disappointment. Brendan Moore even said it. You know, they expected something to get done and they really didn't do anything. But there was just overall there were so many big names that they it was like that movie that gets the real big buildup. Like, oh my gosh, you can't wait to go see this movie, and then you get to the movie and it's an absolute stinker. So for me, it was a little bit of a stinker.
T, any final thoughts from you today before we clip you out? I know you're up against it here, so.
Well, you asked about Utah, and interesting that with 16 or 17 games left, they are potentially headed for a first round matchup against the Anaheim Ducks, which is right down the street. So that's going to create all sorts of problems because I wouldn't know. I might have to just avoid it, even though I'm like jonesing for playoff hockey, and the Kings aren't going to do it this year. So, that would be a very interesting matchup.
Would you be that asshole dressed like a parlay if you went to one of those games where you got your Ducks hat on and your Utah shirt?
You know what I would wear? I would wear my NHL All-Star jersey that just has the shield on it, and then I could just be like, I'm just rooting for the game.
You're gonna pull the Rob Lowe with the NFL hat on in the stands.
Yes.
He'll be back with us next week. We're gonna let him bounce here a couple more minutes with Mac T. Have a good weekend, my brother.
Bye, T.
Hasta luego.
I could see him doing that. I mean, that's a total T get up there. That speaks to T. I'm gonna ask you this because I talked about this last night. I wanted to talk to both of you guys about it, but the Pacific Division. Somebody threw out a tweet last week and said
that makes decisions for the team. Somebody threw out a tweet last week and said it makes
What do we got going on here? All right. Here, hold on. All kinds of chaos, see? We're still working things back together here. Let's see if we're good now. All right, there we go. You got me? I think we lost him.
I can't hear you. We got technical difficulties. I can't hear. I was trying to read your lips.
All right, we're gonna let Mac go. I'm gonna visit that conversation with him tomorrow about the Pacific Division. Again, games going on right now in the college basketball world of matter. Not a whole lot of them tonight. There's more of them. Wisconsin beating Washington 27-22 first half there. Miami has now taken the lead over Louisville. Thank you. Arizona up 12-2 on UCF. We've got Auburn, Tennessee later. Northwestern, Purdue, which I think is going to be interesting. And then Duke, despite all their injuries, we've got Duke on the floor tonight. Xavier and UConn from Madison Square Garden. And the aforementioned Kansas and North Carolina both in action at 6:30 on the West Coast, 8:30 on the East Coast. So tomorrow, Mac will be with me. He'll be able to hear me. We'll get everything caught up. But follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show everywhere but Snapchat because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. Again, we will talk with you tomorrow. By now, you know the drill.